Good morning. Welcome to Crown Forum. Welcome to Crown Forum. Welcome. I will not do a formal introduction, but we have with us an absolute giant from Spelman College who will speak with you today. I was telling her, and I really do wish to put more pressure on the situation, that we're moving Crown Forum in an upward trajectory. So we're moving from the bottom to the top. We're going to keep moving up.
Good morning, my brothers. Good morning. Let's try that again. Good morning, my brothers. Good morning. Much better. My name is Jelon Alexander, a junior history major from Chesapeake, Virginia. I am honored to speak and to inform you that yesterday's Crown Forum After Dark event was a tremendous success. I am proud that I was able to collaborate with Dr. Rice, Dr. Hewitt, and the student committee to pull this off. This event was essential. We have seen so many atrocities last week and this summer. The idea was to do something necessary, something informative and dynamic, to answer the need for students to engage with the leaders of the past. It is imperative that we, as the generation of today, engage with the past generation in order to answer our question of where do we go from here. Last night's event was a huge stepping stone for everyone. We must ask ourselves, where do we go with the Black Lives Matter movement? For those of you who did not attend last night's Crown Forum After Dark event, I left my brothers and sisters who were in attendance a question in my speech. So the question is not, do you want a revolution? But the real question is, are you down with the revolution? Keep that question in mind as we listen and think about the different ways you can contribute to the Black Lives Matter movement and to Mother Morehouse. Thank you. And please welcome to the stage my Morehouse brother, as well as my Mellon Mays fellow, Ryan Russell.
Good morning. Thank you, Jelon, for that introduction. Again, my name is Ryan Russell. I'm a junior political science major from Chesapeake, Virginia, and I have the privilege of introducing our speaker for this morning, Dr. Cynthia Neal Spence. Dr. Cynthia Neal Spence is an associate professor of sociology at Spelman College and director of the UNCF Mellon programs. As director of the UNCF Mellon programs, Dr. Spence creates, manages, and oversees a suite of future faculty development and faculty career enhancement programs for UNCF students and faculty. Under her leadership, students are groomed to enter the PhD pipeline and faculty throughout the UNCF consortium and are supported in their development as teachers and scholars. The UNCF Mellon programs are housed at Spelman College and are funded by the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation. Her teaching and research interests in the areas of sociology, criminology, law, and violence against women support the law and criminology concentration in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology. Dr. Spence has served in the capacities of Assistant Dean for Freshman Studies, Associate Academic Dean, and Academic Dean at Spelman College. Her interests in issues of higher education, access, service learning, gender role socialization, and violence against women frame her research, writing, community service involvement, and public speaking. Her most recent publication includes Who Should Be First? Feminists Speak Out on the 2008 Presidential Campaign, and that is just one of her many publications. Dr. Spence serves as the faculty lead and director for the Spelman College Social Justice Fellows Program. She is committed to helping Spelman women fully actualize their commitment to making a choice to change the world through social justice and advocacy. She has served as the consultant for the Forward Foundation Institutional Transformation Project, the University of Chicago Provost Initiative on Minority Affairs, the Agnes Scott College Center for Teaching and Learning, and the Georgia Department of Corrections. She completed a 2-term appointment as faculty trustee on the Spelman College Board of Trustees and is the former chair on the board of the nonprofit agency Men Stopping Violence and former chair of the board of directors of Georgia Women for Change. She is a founding member of the Women's Solidarity Society for Center for Civil and Human Rights. Dr. Spence is a graduate of Spelman College, where she earned her bachelor's degree. She earned both her master's and PhD degrees from Rutgers University. She is married to Harold W. Spence, and they are the proud parents of 2 daughters, Christy and Courtney. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Cynthia Neal Spence.
So good morning, my Morehouse brothers. Good morning, and thank you so much to my Mellon Fellows, Jelon and Ryan. I continue to be so proud of you, and really I'm awestruck by the impact that you and your Mellon Fellow brothers, Jonathan Carlisle, Louis Miles, Keith Madier, Xavier Bonner, Devon Boyd, and DeMarcus Burke will make upon the Academy once you attain your PhDs. They are future faculty who will transform the Academy, because you see, the Mellon Mays programs are designed to create and to push the walls of resistance that exist in higher education and to make certain that faculty across this country look like you. This is a social movement. I would also like to thank Dr. Davis for coming and subbing in for Dr. David Wall Rice, who invited me, but just like a Morehouse man, he ain't here to see me. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I would like to extend greetings to my Mellon Mays family here at Morehouse College. I see Dr. Samuel Livingston, Dr. Corey Claiborne. I'm not sure if there are other members of the Mellon family, mentors or coordinators in the audience. Are there any others here? If so, certainly I want, even in their absence, I want to extend my sincere gratitude to the very important work that you do in mentoring young men who are a part of the Mellon program, but the work that you do just mentoring the young men of Morehouse. Your work is so important. I see my friend Dr. Belinda White over there, so I wanted to give her a shout out. And clearly, I have long and deep roots with Morehouse College. And, as I talk about the Mellon family, I'm not sure if you all are aware, but your provost, Dr. Garakai Campbell, is a Mellon Fellow. And so clearly he has assumed a role that will give him the opportunity to transform the Academy. Last night's discussion with members of the Black Panther Party during the Crown Forum After Dark is among the many ways that Mellon Mays undergraduate fellows at Morehouse are working with others, including AUC Shut It Down. Is anybody here from AUC Shut It Down? Okay, very good. They're working with organizations to be a part of the change that they wish to see. The opportunity to learn from various social movement leaders is very important. And as I give AUC Shut It Down a shout out, I want to give a shout out to some of my students in the sociological imagination. I think some of them are here, so I want to just give a shout out to them. I didn't invite many people here because I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know how crowded it would be. And also I just wanted to, kind of be in my own space here with you at Morehouse. I have many colleagues, friends, and associates at Morehouse College. Miss Kathy Tyler, who I'm not sure is here today, has been a friend throughout my adult years as we married close friends who happen to be Morehouse men. Yes, my life partner is a Morehouse man. Mr. Harold Spence is sitting right there. We have been married for 36 years. And I tell you, it's taken me about that long to shake some of that Morehouse arrogance, mystique, out of him. I guess I guess mystique is a more politically correct term. In all seriousness, though, I have had a very close relationship with Morehouse College for most of my life, most of my personal and professional life. My mother, Ruby Davenport Neal, worked as an administrative assistant in Archer Hall for 27 years. These were the very formative years of my life as I transitioned from middle school to high school through Spelman as a student and then as an instructor and faculty member and administrator at Spelman. My mother truly loved Morehouse, and she had many adopted sons, including Mr. John Zachary, who I think manages your physical plant and other areas on the campus. I would tease her sometimes. I said, I think you love Morehouse more than you love Spelman, and that's a problem. But no, she truly loved Morehouse, and Morehouse was always a part of our family. I want to salute Dr. David Wall Rice and Morehouse College for framing Crown Forum as a site for discussion about the value of Black lives. My talk today is entitled Black Lives Matter: The Politics of Exclusion Behind the Hashtag. While my mother is no longer with us, I am sure that she would believe, as I do, that the very founding of Morehouse College in 1867 was a testament to the hashtag Black Lives Matter. This is also true for the founding of Atlanta University in 1865, Clark College, founded in 1869, Morris Brown and Spelman College, both founded in 1881, and the School of Medicine in 1975. The founding of these institutions served as an affirmation that Black lives do matter. Each of these institutions was founded because individuals, Black and white, affirmed the statement that there is value in educating Black men and women to assume leadership roles in society. It is important to acknowledge the definition of leadership roles for Black women clearly has changed from preparing women for the private sphere and concentration upon domestic skills to preparing them to enter the public sphere. As a Spelman woman, I know that Spelman women inhabit the halls of all arenas now. As a student at Spelman, I actually, however, spent more time on Morehouse's campus than I did on Spelman's campus. Not because, okay? I thought you might like that, okay? Not because I was fast, seeking the attention of Morehouse men, but because as a relatively shy commuter student, I found greater comfort sitting in my mother's office than I did hanging out on campus. It is because of this that I interacted with a significant number of Morehouse men. In that office, around that table, I developed what would truly be considered relationships with Morehouse men, gay and straight, who considered themselves members of my fictive kin family. These Morehouse men treated me with respect, and I feel confident that they would have stepped in if they believed I was being treated in a way that objectified my existence or violated my space. It may have been because I was Mrs. Neal's daughter, but we are all somebody's daughter, son, sister, brother, partner. It really should not matter. They, like me and you, were just trying to figure out their place in the world and were seeking community. Then, just as it is now, there was a lot of rhetoric about what it means to be a Morehouse man. We were not sophisticated enough to recognize that just as there is no archetype for a Spelman woman, there is no archetype for a Morehouse man. There are Spelman women and there are Morehouse men. The more complicated equation then and now required one to add narrowly defined characteristics of what it means to be a Morehouse man to a limited number of characteristics that represent hegemonic, patriarchal, heteronormative notions of masculinity. Challenging these restrictive boundaries of Black manhood was a problem then and continues to be a problem today. The Morehouse man model has historically been celebrated, marketed, and indoctrinated upon all who enter. Morehouse College, its graduates, faculty, staff, and students should be celebrated and at the same time challenged to make sure that the institution is preparing young men to enter a very diverse and evolving society, one where the politics of respectability and sophistication must be expanded to include the development of men who embrace diversity and challenge non-progressive ideologies of the past that are sexist, misogynistic, and homophobic. Morehouse men must demonstrate progressive ideas and attitudes that represent thinking for the 21st century and beyond. You don't know who your supervisors will be when you leave Morehouse College. You don't know who your family members or extended family members may become when you decide to partner. You must develop more progressive ideas. This is not just my opinion, but a recommendation made by me and Morehouse faculty and staff who sat on a Morehouse task on diversity and tolerance many years ago. The task force was formed in response to a serious physical assault against a Morehouse student by another student who thought that the victim of the assault was in essence making a pass at him. This was a terrible moment in the history of Morehouse College. I am not sure what happened to the recommendations of the task force, but I want to believe that this institution is committed to creating an institutional climate that makes this great college a safe space for all of its students. All Black lives matter. I want to give a shout out to Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, and Opal Tometi. Some of you may not recognize their names. They are three self-identified lesbian women who created the hashtag that founded the movement Black Lives Matter in response to the acquittal of George Zimmerman after he took himself to be the judge, jury, and executioner of Trayvon Martin. The hashtag has developed a life of its own and fueled an international movement. It is ironic that these women are the founders because the lives of women and men who are not identified as heterosexual are often at best marginalized, at worst rendered invisible by Black social movements. I could not speak to the theme Black Lives Matter without saying their names. We must resist the tendency to claim social movements as exclusively male heterosexual space. The historiography of Black resistance often excludes the roles and experiences of those other than heterosexual males. In response to the attention the community has placed upon the killing by police to the exclusion of Black women, legal scholar Kimberly Crenshaw and African American Policy Forum issued a policy statement entitled #SayHerName, in an effort to bring attention to police violence against women and girls. Such violence is often unacknowledged. Mass appeals to marches are often not called for when Black women's lives are taken away by police violence. Women and men, boys and girls, are victimized by excessive police force. It is true that police killing of unarmed Black men is more frequent. However, all lives that are in fact snuffed out by the unlawful use of deadly force should be of concern. Over the past several years, I would suggest that we as an African American community have been issued a wake-up call. But are we woke? That's your language. As a professor of sociology, I want to situate our discussion of the Black Lives Matter movement within a socio-historical context, because while the phraseology is new, I would suggest that the accompanying frustrations that fuel varied forms of activism are not new. When I reflect upon the Black Lives Matter movement, I see similarities with the work of the late 19th and 20th century social justice activism of Ida B. Wells. Born in a time of blatant racist acts of violence and legalized segregation, Wells resisted the notion that Black lives did not matter and began a career as a social justice activist journalist when she conducted the first official study of lynching. According to her biographer, Paula Giddings, Wells believes, quote, lynching was the central issue that defined Blacks as the nation lurched toward the 20th century, and the one that demanded new strategies that included self-defense and civil disobedience, end quote. It is estimated that 728 persons were lynched between 1882 and 1891. The majority of them African-American men, but some African-American women were lynched as well. It was alleged that most of these individuals had sexually assaulted white women, the Black males. An inhumane and oppressive form of law and order was enforced and used to control the Black population. Ida B. Wells and her anti-lynching campaign was supported by African-American women. The contributions of Ida B. Wells and African-American club women, including Anna Julia Cooper, are often excluded from narratives about the fight for civil rights in this country. In addition to activism against lynching, these women also raised consciousness about the rampant rape of Black women by white men throughout the South. I would imagine that if Ida B. Wells was with us today, she might assert that the undisciplined and unlawful police use of deadly force against Black males and females shares some similarities with the racist sentiments that vilified Black males in the 19th and early 20th century. Being Black was and continues to be perceived by some as probable cause for the use of deadly force. Authorized discretionary decision-making by law enforcement officers has historically and continues to work to the disadvantage of Black and brown bodies, male and female, gay, straight, and trans populations. The shocking videos of unarmed Black men and women being shot through our nation's inner cities compels us to seek and demand answers, to organize protests, to create symbols of unity, whether that is by not pledging allegiance to the flag or demanding that institutions of higher education throughout this country acknowledge their relationship to the enslavement and marginalization of persons based on race, class, gender, sexuality, nation, religion, and other identities that do not resemble those in power. We must also engage in questioning our own complicity in the othering processes that deem Black males and females as dangerous, unruly, promiscuous, and dispensable. We must question our allegiance to the heteronormative structures that render silent the voices of gender nonconforming males and females. As we investigate the incidences of violence in our communities, we must expand our analysis to include those whose lives are not lifted up in the rhetoric of Black Lives Matter, including, in some cases, the founders of the movement. As Morehouse College alumnus Martin Luther King Jr. clarified for us, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. As we prepare for the November election, we know that Black lives have been problematized by the Republican candidate for president. His appeal to the African American community has magnified narrow, homogenizing assessments of who we are as people and the value that we add to society. According to Trump, I guess it's okay to call his name, we are all living in poverty, our schools are no good, we have no jobs, and we are afraid to exit our front doors in fear of becoming a victim of Black-on-Black crime. While we cannot deny that there are communities in our country that have been victimized by structural constraints that yield feelings of helplessness and hopelessness, we certainly do not need, nor can we depend upon Donald Trump to address these concerns. AUC Shut It Down, social justice scholars, Afrikidi, and a host of other student-led organizations must continue to help address some of these concerns in our surrounding communities. Trump's solution is to intensify what is already a guiding principle for some within the law enforcement community, that the only way to respond to inner city crime is to impose an oppressive form of law and order that our history knows all too well. This has been a rallying cry since our ancestors were forcefully captured and placed in positions of subjugation throughout the diaspora. We as a community have been identified as a problem. This should be a matter of concern. Our discontent today in 2016 was shared by Du Bois more than 100 years ago in his 1903 essay entitled Our Spiritual Strivings, when he asked us what it feels like to be identified as a problem. He stated that being a problem is a strange experience. Listening to the pleas of victims and associates of victims pleading for their lives on camera in response to unjustified police violence, or seeing them shot in cold blood is both a problem and a strange experience. We are in a time of crisis, and the Black Lives Matter movement must unify our communities. We all agree that Black Lives Matter, but we must ask, whose narratives and experiences are included? As I think about the Black Lives Matter movement, I am also drawn to the biography of Rosa Parks. You know her as the mother of the movement, the one who refused to give up her seat on the bus. Her role was important to the Black Lives Matter movement in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955. However, this was not her first foray into contributing to a narrative about Black Lives Matter. Danielle McGuire, in her book At the Dark End of the Street, Black Women, Rape, and Resistance, marks the role of Rosa Parks in civil rights activism much earlier. As an investigator for the Montgomery NAACP, she led investigations about the sexual assault of Black women throughout the South in the 1940s and before. Some assert that it was the anti-rape activism that helped to fuel the civil rights movement. Our narratives about the civil rights movement do not include the early activism of Rosa Parks, nor do they identify the sexual assault and rape of Black women as a significant component of the fight for justice for Black people. Why is the story of the rape and sexual assault of Black women throughout the South not included in the histories of the civil rights movement? Did their lives not matter? Contemporarily, why did it take federal mandates to require colleges and universities across this country, including Spelman and Morehouse colleges, to re-examine their processing of allegations of rape and sexual assault and to establish clear, consistent, and transparent policies that ensure the allegations of victimization are fully vetted without preconceived notions about the veracity of the charges? Should we not include sexual violence exacted against women and men in the Black Lives Matter discourse? As I think of other voices, although present, who may not receive as much attention, I think of the exclusion of issues and concerns of the LGBTQ community. My dear colleague, Dr. Vicki Crawford, and I'm not sure if she's here, but she would acknowledge that only recent attention to making visible the work of Bayard Rustin, an openly gay Black male who is considered the architect of the historic March on Washington and key strategist, who was depended upon greatly by Morehouse graduate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was not necessarily lifted up in the early history books. Why did it take so long to acknowledge the brilliance of this man who lived his life as a gay male? Did his contributions to the movement matter? I come today to challenge Morehouse and at the same time to congratulate this institution on lifting up and I hope supporting the efforts of students who choose to embrace the Black Lives Matter movement in varied ways, whether that is participating in protests, voting, engaging the community in discussions, voting, demanding more inclusive curricular initiatives that respond to the diversity that exists in this audience, voting, encouraging scholar activism, voting, or creating policies that are inclusive of the lives that inhabit the place we call Morehouse College. Morehouse College, like Spelman College, Clark Atlanta University, and colleges and universities across the country must practice what we preach. We cannot answer the external call of Black Lives Matter without engaging in a serious interrogation of what the slogan means within our sacred walls. We must not repeat the mistakes of the past which excluded diverse voices or lauded the contributions of a few. Students, this is your movement to lead. It must represent the rich diversity of voices you bring to the Black Lives Matter movement. I salute you and I congratulate you on your unity, on your inclusiveness, and I challenge you to become the models for the change that you wish to see. Thank you very much.
We're now going to allow several of you to ask questions. We want her to try to address as many of you as possible. So in that regard, we need you to minimize your questions / statement / oratory. And so what we'll do is these gentlemen will facilitate it by getting the mic to you if we can. So she's going to go right ahead. Go ahead. Okay. Questions.
And, you know, I may not be able to answer all the questions. I don't have all the answers, so I'm interested in hearing from you as well. So you don't have to ask a question. You might even just want to make a statement. But our Mellon Fellows are coordinating, a brief statement. Okay, I know I'm at Morehouse. All right, so our Mellon Fellows are helping to coordinate. Okay.
Hello, my name is Joshua Truss Reed, a sophomore cinema, television, and emerging media studies major from Alexandria, Virginia, and I just wanted to ask a question about you specifically emphasized voting in the last part of your talk.
Yes.
What is your takes on voting versus not voting? I know some people are conscientious objectors, especially with this election where people feel like Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are not viable options or options specifically for the liberation of Black people. So just speaking on not voting.
No, I absolutely appreciate your and respect your question, and also respect the tensions and difficulties that many of us are having with distinguishing between the lesser of the two evils, some might say. But my take on voting is that I'm voting beyond the president. I'm voting for Supreme Court nominations. I'm voting for federal judge nominations. I'm voting for the maintenance of policies that were established by the Barack Obama administration. And if you don't vote, you are voting. Not voting is voting, because what you do by the absence of your vote, you are giving more power to the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, but in this case, you would be giving more power to the Republican Party. And the Republican Party currently does not necessarily have the interest of marginalized communities on their agenda. It is certainly not a priority. And so when you vote, you must think beyond the presidential election. You must think about what happens when you move one party in versus another one. And so I plead with you to exercise your right to vote. I mean, people, and I know you all get tired of the rhetoric that people died for the right to vote, but that's a fact. It is a fact. And it is disrespectful for those who came before you, who created the many possibilities that you have now if you don't vote. Okay, thank you.
My name is Nicholas Clemens. I agree with what you just said, but one thing that I do want to, it's not a question per se, but I do want to ask you, well, when you, in your speech, you led primarily, when you had successions of describing things, you led with men. And in my opinion, I feel like that's problematic because you're still putting men in this hierarchy of they're up here and everyone else is down here. You ended with men, women, gay, LGBT, and you ended trans at the last. So are we still continuing this hierarchy of male privilege, even in our writing and our speech, by proceeding with men and the other categories below them?
Yeah, thank you. It's just a very interesting observation. That was certainly not my intention. I think my intention was actually to introduce the work of women that has been silenced, the work of women that many of you might not have even known about. And so that was my intention. But you're right that much of what we do is in fact framed by masculinity, by maleness. And so my intention, although perhaps I was not as successful, was to disrupt the narratives about men and their leadership, about men in the civil rights movement, about men and anti-racist movements. And so that was my intention, but thank you for bringing that to my attention, because I'll relook at the speech and dust it off a little bit more. Thank you. Okay.
Good morning. My question is, based off your experience, what do you consider to be the #1 factor that's leading to more division or to keep the same status quo as the division that's been throughout our history?
Yeah, and is that division within group or? Within group, I think that we and my students in sociological imagination know about this. We do a lot of our own kind of policing of each other. We do a lot of what sociologists call boundary work. It's a very intentional process of distinguishing ourselves from others because the resources have not been allocated as fairly by the structures that we live within. And so we've always felt as if there are scarce resources. And when there's scarcity, some individuals believe that being a community to go after the scarce resources is not the best way. I would suggest to you that we certainly will, and that we're much more impactful when we join together as a community, but also when we entertain and accept and respect diverse opinions, because we can only grow if we are, in fact, challenged to think differently, challenged to change the lenses through which we view society. And so that's a problem. That is definitely a problem. And we, men of Morehouse, women of Spelman, men and women of Clark Atlanta, we need to join together. We don't need to work against each other. You know, we are in fact in a time of crisis. And so we are much better working together than we are working apart. We must forget the differences that we don't understand and attempt to understand those differences so that we can move forward. Is that okay?
Good morning, I'm Key Weeks. In the wake of a society and a movement that is at times persistent and insistent in marginalization, how do you as a woman remain not defeated?
Oh, I can't be defeated. I can't be defeated, no. Being defeated, I think about something that Bell Hooks told to a young woman who said she was so tired of trying to explain to other white people that, it's not about all Black lives matter. It's about all lives matter. It's Black lives matter. And Bell Hooks said, being tired is a privilege. I can't be defeated, and so, and I know that I am prepared to lead. I know that, and I didn't just get that at Spelman. I got that from my family. I'm prepared to leave, and there's no one that I should, in fact, worship in such a way that would cause me to feel defeated. Now, is life challenging? Yes, life is challenging. Are, gender tensions challenging? Yes, they are challenging. But I know and I believe in the ability of individuals to be able to change, to evolve, and to grow. And our institutions must be places where we push growth and evolution and thought and ideas. And so I'm committed to doing that. Hi, Cynthia. I didn't see you here.
Hello,
okay.
Cynthia.
Yeah.
I want to take an opportunity just to ask you about if you would speak on what's going on in the schools. Right now we're facing this legislation that
Yes.
that Governor Deal has put in place to be able to take over
Yes.
take over school districts
Yes.
of, quote, failing schools,
Yes.
which is a euphemism for
Yes.
our community
Yes.
schools.
Schools in these urban environments, right? Schools in this neighborhood would be a
Yeah.
part of that.
Tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that when you speak
Yeah.
about voting.
You can speak about it, Cynthia. No,
Yeah, I will.
vote no to Amendment 1. I can say that.
Yes, vote no to Amendment 1. Here we are in Atlanta University
Yes,
Center.
yes.
And we're facing a situation where the governor wants to take over the schools, as was done in New Orleans.
Yes.
So a failing school, the governor becomes in control, not a board of education anymore.
Yes.
And then he can close up to 10 schools a year. And then, as well, they'll give them over to an agency to run.
Yeah.
But what will that agency ever do for us?
Yeah.
So I thought that might be something we might want to vote about.
Yes.
Whether you're for Democrats or Republicans, that one.
Yeah, you need to look at the full ballot. You need to be in the voting booth. Thank you, Cynthia. Thank you. Dr. Hewitt. Yes.
All right, my name is Lawson Graham, freshman philosophy major from Durham, North Carolina. And my question is, how do we take the message that we, not only as Morehouse students and future graduates, but as men of privilege and people of privilege, how do we take our messages not only from our own confined privileged spaces and our own urban spaces, because in your speech, when you were talking, I heard you say inner cities, but a thing that never really gets talked about enough is the amount of rural and country
Yes,
black folks
yes.
that aren't necessarily able to hear these messages, in Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina, where our library just got internet 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So we're not up on all these things.
Right.
So how do we take this and we amplify it to those people that are unheard?
I'm going to ask you to answer the question. I think it's a wonderful question. What are your suggestions? What are the suggestions for Morehouse men? Because you are right when you say you are in privileged positions. And a lot of you may not see that, but you're privileged because you're in college. You are college-educated men. That is a privilege. That is a privilege. So how do you share this particular position of privilege to educate others, to expand their knowledge, to expand the lenses through which they view society? How would you suggest we do that?
I haven't taken it. I don't feel comfortable answering that because I don't feel like I have enough knowledge about these things for me to.
Well, how do you, others, would others like to respond? Go ahead. Come on, Mellon fellows.
Hi everyone, my name is Jonathan Carlisle. I'm a senior political science major from the small town of Marion, Alabama. And I guess my recommendation would be that there are resources that have here, whether they be small or a lot, that we try our best to share those resources with maybe 1 or 2 students back home. And in doing so, you set an example, you create a movement of sorts for people to continue that trajectory for years to come. So when you don't have internet or access to certain resources, the one drop in the bucket can become an entire bucket eventually.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And students, scholars, we must develop strategic plans for helping our communities. You know, we have to move beyond the rhetoric of talking about it, but actually mapping out to-do list. When you go home, what are you going to do in an effort to share and uplift the communities that you represent? That's what you're here for. That's one of the reasons that you're here. You're here to be educated so that you can, in fact, educate others. And so we must develop very serious strategic plans to do that. Okay? Thank you very much.
Let's thank Dr. Spence again. Thank you. Dear old Morehouse, dear old Morehouse, we have pledged our lives to thee, and will ever, yea, forever, give ourselves in loyalty, true forever, true forever, to old Morehouse. ties more brotherly. Holy Spirit, make us stand.